Hey, welcome back, YouTuber boys and girls. Folks, how you doing today? Been a little bit since you seen me. I've been out in the deer woods. Man, had a lot of pretty days, and deer don't like to move on pretty days out in the places where you can find them. They like to stay down in the canyons, down in the hollows. Takes a little bit to see them. Shots were fired. Meat was collected. Not quite as much as I wanted to, but it was an absolute comedy of errors as to things that literally milliseconds before sight picture was confirmed and trigger was getting ready to be pressed, deer got spooked by the most unthought of and inordinate manner of different things. Now, some of these things I've seen before, but I've never seen 7 different times in one season in 8 days. Okay, we're talking stray dogs, helicopters, pigs, other people. What else was it? It was just a plethora of items. Oh, construction equipment coming in that nobody told me was coming into an area 400 yards from where I was hunting, on the backside of where I was hunting. Just airplanes, other deer. I mean, it was just horrendously unreal how many times I literally had my eye behind the scope, just getting ready to pull the trigger, and gone. So, yeah, it was a season of frustration, the winter of my discontent. And although some meat animals were taken, antlerless, which is what I like to eat. I'd rather eat antlerless doe than any other deer meat, for sure. I did see a couple of bucks that were not the bull of the woods, but they were acting like they were getting ready to be, and they appeared to have that recessive gene trait that gives their antlers a weird shape. There's a couple behind me on the wall. So they're going to be removed from the gene pool. That will have to wait until next season, but I'll be keeping an eye on them. I'll have them set up, and that'll happen the very first day that you can lawfully take a buck. But without further ado, going into that, I'd rather forget about it anyway. Today's video, as you might have guessed from the thumbnail, is on a weapon that I've had more than one of. And you know, I did a video a month or two back on a friend of mine's Browning 1892 in 44 mag, and I tried my best to talk him out of it. I've had several carbines 92 style in 44 mag and 45, and I loved them, but he wouldn't part with it. I imagine he would if I gave him the right money, but I can't afford to do that. But where there's a will, there's a way. And so this is the third Rossi R92 44 mag I've owned in my life. And every one of them I had to take the time to apply the energy to get them slicked up inside, because as any of you that have ever handled Model 92s, you've felt the difference between Winchesters, Brownings, and Rossis. Rossis are definitely the clunky, chunky ones out of the box. And I've taken a little time to do a few things to this, but there are a couple of other things that I'm still going to have to do, because although this puppy shoots good, and yes, that is a heads up, Holosun 510, the buckhorn sights are nice, and if my eyes were 20 years younger, I probably wouldn't have a problem with them. But I just can't engage them as quickly as I need to or want to. So up here on the barrel, which is drilled and tapped from the factory, I've placed a Skinner sight mount, a Skinner scope mount. Skinner's a company out of Montana, I believe. And let me tell you something, they make a damn good mount. Shameless plug, they ain't giving me no money for that. I ain't shilling for anybody. They just make a damn good mount for this barrel. And I put that 510 Holosun on it because, man, it works great. The only difference in hold, if you were shooting buckhorn sights, you'd have the top of that top of that stock cone right up there against your cheekbone. With this, I just rest right there. It's heads up. You're not down behind the gun missing anything. Your head's up right there. And let me tell you something, it's accurate. It does a good job. But anyway, like I said, what I'm going to do is we're getting ready to take this puppy out to the range, and I'll do a little demonstration of just how fast and how accurately fast you can be. Well, the lever gun's got a heads up sight on it. I was kind of impressed. And so without further ado, let me go ahead and point out to you a few places inside the action of this weapon. Now, this is not a how-to video. I'm not going to be showing you how to do all this stuff, okay? It would be hours long. And God knows what the artificial intelligence or human reviewers on YouTube would have to say about some of the things I did. There would be no real modification, no modifying done. It's basically what I would term as finish work that should have been done at the factory. But why take a chance, right? So give me a second to get this puppy broke down into its individual pieces, and we'll adjust the camera angle, and I'll point some places out to you where if you've got one of these and you just can't stand the clunkiness of it, you can change that. If you're proficient with tearing one down. If not, if you know a good gunsmith that knows what to do, he can get it done for you. Right now, this is a much smoother Rossi 92 than it was when it came out of the box. Stand by. Alright, we're back. Now we got this puppy busted down into more or less most of its individual pieces. There's still a couple of pieces left inside the receiver, but there's no need to take them out. There was nothing that needed any attention, and they basically, although I did take them out earlier to check everything, they're not showing any wear marks, any gouge marks, so they really didn't need any attention. The places where we normally find that you need attention is on the ejector plunger and its assembly. Now this is housed in the bolt, more or less in this area, and this plunger neck goes through the spring. It's held in place by a collar that is locked up against this little step in here. And so you can see there's no real full, complete, round hole channel that it sits in to help keep it lined up. It more or less is floating in place, and it's got a little wobble. It can transition up and down, left and right, not by much, and it's no biggie. It works just fine, but kind of a pain, and it allows a little bit of lateral movement to this. And that's no big deal except for the fact that right here on this shaft, I don't know if you can see a little dark spot. There was a spot there, probably because it's where it's held in place for machining or something, I don't know, that it had just a little bit of a half-moon burr lip. Wasn't much, and you really couldn't hardly tell it was there unless you put your finger on it and moved it back and forth. So a little bit of 1500 grit wet sand, polish that right out. Just polish that shaft a little. The face of it, on the forward edge, you don't need a whole lot of attention. It's out there in front, and it never has to go back into its recess or its channel. But the rear of this assembly had some burr edges that I went ahead and just knocked down with that 1500 grit, and it takes care of that stuff right smartly. Try to get these to stay up there. I don't know if you can see it, but these are the locking lugs for the bolt, and they travel up and down when you operate the lever action on this weapon. These are the rear faces of the lugs, and I'll post pictures so you can get a better look at this stuff. But right in here and right in here, where I've already given them some polishing, I went out, used it a little bit, worked it a little bit, and now I'm still getting scuffs here and here from very light ridges in the rear of the channels in which they ride. Now, this occurs because when these lugs come up through their raceway here and engage the bolt right at the rear so that they can push it forward, this face is putting tension against the forward face of those lugs, so it's pushing them back. And it's these rear pieces that are coming in contact with some surfaces right in here that need a little TLC. And I try to get a picture of them. I just don't have a lens that can get in there and do it justice. But I can see them with the naked eye. Now, right here on this lever, you say, wow, whew. Yes, it has some spots. Each one of these spots, here, here, in between here, in fact, you can still see a little crescent right up here. We're getting, I'd say, moderate pressure from something somewhere. And this was totally black like the rest of the handle is, except for these parts, which that's just crappy finishing. This area of the lever never contacts any other metal, so that's just bluing flicking off. But these areas do. And so a good solid flat stone, some 3000, some 1500 grit, a little bit of elbow rub. It doesn't take much, but now it's not getting any new marks except for right there, which I can hit that with the stone 10 or 12 more strokes and that'll go away. You'll notice on the other side of the lever, there ain't a mark on it, except for just a little wear along the edge, and that's no biggie. But you would think that there would be all kinds of scarring over here, but there's not. So, as you can tell, that's sitting in just a little bit of a left to center position, and there's nothing that can really be done about that. That's just workmanship is all that is. The other parts needed no attention. So let's get this puppy back together and head out to the range and see how she does. Now, like I said, there's a couple of areas I'm going to have to give a little more attention to, and so I'll do that, obviously off camera. We'll see how that affects it. It's already pretty smooth, but I got a feeling it's going to be a little bit smoother. Now, one other item I want to mention, and you really probably can't see it very well, that I did pay some attention to, is the elevator, the lifter, the carrier, whatever you want to call it, that brings the cartridge up for loading into the chamber. Now, I'll post a picture of that. That thing had a surface like, I don't know, the Sea of Tranquility on the moon, and it was black as the ace of spades, and it was so rough that it was just literally sanding brass off the edge of the rims. So got on it, and I gave it some love too, and I may give it just a little bit more, but I'll post a picture of that. You'll see that here in a second. All right, so let's get this puppy back together, get ready to go to the range. Well, actually, I guess I'll go ahead and leave it apart and take care of those things. So let's just go ahead and say from right here, I'll get that stuff done. apply a little more elbow grease, and let's make the range session a separate video. What do you say? I feel pretty good about that. So stand by. Let's have some closing thoughts. Alrighty then. Well, like I said, folks, those are the little places that, of all three of the Rossis I've ever owned, all those places always needed attention. This one isn't in nearly as rough a shape as my first one or my second one. This is this year's production, and I have to say they're doing better. So I'm going to sit down, hit these spots that need just a little more love laid on them, and hit them nice and light. Get this puppy put back together, and we'll tool on out to the range and demonstrate how fast you can acquire targets with this weapon. Pretty fast, pretty accurate with that Holosun sitting on top of it. I like that. Boy, that's money in the bank for my eyesight nowadays. But I hope you guys learned a little something. Like I said, this isn't an instructional. It's not a how. That wasn't a how-to. It was just, these are the places you need to look at if you have one of these. And if you are skilled at doing these things, then you know where to look. If you're not, find a competent pardon me, it's Christmas season, I had eggnog. Find a competent gunsmith, somebody that can work on these, and tell them you need your action slicked up, and hopefully they won't charge you an arm and a leg and a gonad to do that. But I appreciate you guys stopping in. Glad I got to see you again, and I'll give this puppy some love, get her put back together, and I will see you next week out at the range. Thanks for stopping in. I hope you learned a little something. I hope you had fun and enjoyed it. And I'll be seeing you folks real soon somewhere downrange. Bye.